We're looking at another log here from Rubiliani. In a previous analysis, I suggested that you turn your D gains down. You had some random twitches that I attributed to excess D gain. We've got an example of that here at about 53 seconds. Let's take a quick look at that so we know what we're looking at. So I would say it almost looks like there's just the barest shudder, if you will. Almost not a twitch, but a shudder. I don't know. It's sort of splitting a hair there, but yeah, that's a tricky thing to tune out, I got to admit. We're going to take a look at your traces here, but I do want to talk about one of the things you submitted was a bunch of examples of your motors. And I looked through those, and I want to say that I don't think your motor vibration is the problem. I assume these tests were with props off. Maybe you have a bad prop. I don't know. But looking at your motors, my guideline is that less than 0.03 for a motor with prop off is like perfect, okay? And less than 0.10 is still not too bad. When it gets above 0.10, that's when I start thinking, well, maybe I got a motor that's bad or vibration problem in the motor. But less than 0.03, like, don't even think twice. And less than 0.10, it's still probably not a problem. All of the traces that you submitted were below 0.03. I think a few of them went to 0.04. But if you're looking for issues here, it is not vibration in your motors. Okay, I feel really confident saying that. So it might be vibration in your props, it might be any number of other things, but not vibration in your motors. Okay, so let's take a look at your black box. And of course, the first thing I'd like to do is look at your gyros. Your gyros look pretty good, very clean here. Your yaw trace is very thin. Some interesting motion on your pitch and roll traces, especially your roll trace. Well, I definitely see what might be some signs of like something kind of oscillation or something. Let's take a look at it. So we're looking at roll here. Nothing about this jumps out to me as bad. Like, if you were to ask me, like, what does a good black box trace look like? I mean, obviously, there's no such thing as a perfect black box trace, but this could be an example of sort of a canonical good trace. The D term is roughly proportional to the P term. We don't see excess activity in the P term, but the P term is somewhat active. It's not just sort of sitting there at the line. We see it moving around. This looks really good, honestly. I don't see any super high throttle scenarios. So here, when we get to high throttle, so that's bad. I don't like that. I don't think that's good. You're only at like 1600 throttle here, and roll is kind of flipping out. Yeah, D term is getting a little active here. P term, but you know, like if we look here, P term is pretty active here. D term is pretty active here. But even this, I would say in my experience, this is what a sharply tuned copter looks like. That in flight, this copter will still look really good. Like, let's take a look. Here we've got a sharp turn. P term gets really active. We definitely see some signs of oscillation in the P term here. And I especially want you guys to notice how the P term goes big and then sort of tapers down. That is a very classic sort of P term thing to do. P gain thing to do. P gain is a little high here. It's not, maybe not too high, maybe again like the tires squealing on a car. If you're not squealing the tires, you're not racing, right? So the P term is getting a little antsy here. And again, we might have a prop wash situation. So I'm not saying this is bad, but I am saying that as the P gain starts to get higher on the high end of normal, this is what starts coming out. This sort of either the oscillation will ramp up or ramp down in the way that this does. You can see the slope right here. Okay, let's take a look at what this looks like, though. Did you see anything there in the? Let's back up even a little more. Oh, just the tiniest shudder there, right? And here it's going to really go crazy. Let's see what it looks like in the video. Yeah, I saw a shudder there. Didn't I? Did you? I don't know if my frame rate's good enough to actually let you see it. Hang on. Yeah, I did. I definitely saw a shutter there. Okay, so in a way we're lucky here because I saw a shutter there. Oh, that's 154. I don't know if that's the exact same thing, but like if we look at the PID here when the shutter is happening, we can see that this is definitely a tuning issue. Again, because of the interaction between P and D, the first thing would do is knock D way down to like 5. And I know you said you implemented some of my suggestions, but I don't see a config. Oh yeah, there's a config dump here. Oh great. Let's see what your D gain is then. D roll 25. Okay, so seriously, knock your roll D down to like 5, and see what happens. Okay. Because you can't tune P like this. It's impossible to tell whether P is flipping out because D is dragging it around, or whether P is flipping out and is causing D to go crazy. Okay, so definitely knock D on roll down to like 5 or 10, and then tune P separately. Okay, I haven't gone back and watched the whole video, but if I didn't say it, that's always the case when you've got P and D flipping out like this. You can't tune P and D at the exact same time. You have to, if the P and the D term are flipping out, you can't know which is causing it. So you gotta get D out of the equation, knock it down to 5 or maybe 10 at most, and then check and see if this still happens with P. But as you try to troubleshoot this issue, this is the exact kind of thing I would look at. Look on the roll axis and look for this kind of flipping out. Because here we saw, and let's go to 53 seconds where we had the example that you showed. What happens at 50? There's just the tiniest twitch there. It really is barely even visible. It's right. Where is it? I mean, the one I found was even more, I think, right there. Okay, so that one's not as obvious. It's pretty subtle. Anything on pitch? No, there's never pitches. If there's an issue like this, it's usually not going to be on pitch, unless you're flying something like a Krieger that's really symmetrical. Yeah. I don't know. Yaw doesn't look... Nothing really stands out about yaw. Yaw looks okay. I don't think that's where your problem is. But let me look at pitch one more time. Yeah. Pitch doesn't look like it's flipping out. See these big humps here? Pitch is usually operating at a lower frequency because of the way the mass is distributed further away from the center point. Again, we got what looks like an active but not overactive P gain with maybe even a slightly underrepresented D gain here because the D is slightly less amplitude than the P most of the time. During normal flight, really nothing going on. That's fine. The only thing I can find in here that really jumps out as problematic was that roll that I found. So I would, and there was a very clear shutter in the high def footage at the time that was happening. So in as much as I can help you troubleshoot this, remotely without, having the copter in front of me and being there to help you out, I would say that take your D gain on roll specifically down to like 10 at most, and then see if the problem still happens, and then work your P gain, because we definitely see some scenarios where P and D on roll are flipping out, and those are associated with an oscillation. So, you just kind of gotta kind of pull at the thread you got, right? It's kind of a weird thing that's happening. It's not clear exactly what's causing it, but we got this scenario here where the weird little shutter happens, and we see P and D on roll sort of flipping out at that time. So we got to kind of pull at that thread and just try and figure out if that's, just pick at it until we come up with something useful, right? But we don't have a clear answer, so we just got to kind of go with what we can find. All right. Hope that's helpful, and happy flying.